Hello guys, bienvenidos a este nuevo video. Aquí estaré jugando este juego llamado The Stanley Parable Ultra de Luz. Ok, a ver aquí idioma. Parido. ¿Alguna vez? No. Es primera vez que juego. Ay, ok. La hora actual. La hora específica, a ver, abrimos el reloj. 6 y 18. 18, segundos. Tin, 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 tin. Ahí está, confirmar. La hora exactica. Aceptar. Iniciar partida, sí. Eh, Nunca
This
es
is
el
the
fin.
story of a man named Stanley.
Llamado Stanley. Ok, ya sabemos por qué llama así el
Stanley
juego.
worked for a company in a big
Estaba por
building
una empresa en
where
un
he
edificio
was
enorme donde era el
employee
empleado
number 427.
427. Ok, muy
Employee
específico.
number 427's job was simple. He
Sencillo.
sat at his desk in room 427
Selecciona
and he
botón en un
pushed
teclado.
buttons on
Pues,
a keyboard.
ojalá fuera tan
Orders
fácil
came to him
trabajar.
through a monitor on his desk, telling
Ah,
him
no,
what
que sí.
buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although
Con la
others
puta
might have considered
musiquita
it
de
soul
como
kicking,
juego
Stanley
arcade.
relished every moment that the
Como antes
orders
que
came
llegaban las
in,
órdenes.
as though he had been made
Ok.
exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget.
Ok.
He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow.
Chimba,
No
o sea
one
que
had
el
showed
man
up to
fue a
give him
decir por qué no había trabajo,
instructions, call
¿qué?
a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was
Ok.
very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid,
Petrificado.
Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Sí, el marica estuvo ahí 4 horas sentado esperando. Ah, yo creo que esto es normal, es algo de haber pasado. Ok, a ver. Ok, según el reloj son como las 5:58, más o menos. Ok, sí, yo soy el
All of his
427.
co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
Este
Stanley
marica
decided
va
to go
pero
to the
súper
meeting
rápido.
room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Ok. Sí. En un trofeo dorado, 2 trofeos dorados, 2 trofeos
When
de oro me
Stanley
dieron
came
por un
to a set
DX.
of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Left. ¿Será que voy por la derecha?
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
Tan solo para admirarla.
Yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend but eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
¡Suerte! Papi, a lo Cold War.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
Obviamente, como buen joven que soy, vamos siempre. A ver, nada, no puedo tomarla. Ok, ¿me va a matar aquí o qué?
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your
¿Qué pasa,
enemy,
mentira?
really, I'm not. But in his eagerness to prove that he is in control of the story and no one gets to tell him what to do, Stanley leapt from the platform and plunged to his death. Good job, Stanley. Everyone
Todos
thinks you are
creen que
very
eres muy
powerful.
poderoso. De 19, nunca.
All his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
Pero me gusta que, o sea, el juego pensó, este marica se puede tirar aquí y como para desafiar las órdenes. Ok, sí, buen detalle.
On the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy,
No
really.
soy tu enemigo.
I
En
realize that
serio, no lo
investing your
soy.
trust in someone else can be
Sé que puede ser
difficult, but the
difícil que
fact
deposites
is that
confianza
the
en otra
story
persona,
has
pero la
been
verdad
about
es que esta
nothing
historia
but
siempre ha
you
girado en torno
all
a ti
this
hasta ahora.
time. There's someone you've been neglecting,
¿Has
Stanley.
detenido a alguien esta
Someone
te
you've
has
forgotten
olvidado de esa
about.
persona?
Please,
Por
stop
favor, no
trying to make
intentes
every
tomar
decision
todas
by
las
yourself.
decisiones tú solo.
I'm not asking for me,
Pido por mí, te
I'm
lo pido.
asking for her.
Por
This is
ella.
it, Stanley. Your chance to redeem yourself, to put your work aside, to let her back into your life. She's been waiting.
Me encanta que cierra la puta puerta y al marica Stanley no le importa. Por la cara. Hijo de puta.
That's her, Stanley. You need to be the one to do this, to reach out to her. If you can truly place your faith in another, then pick up the phone.
O sea que puedo no responderlo. Me imagino que algo pasará si me quedo quieto por mucho tiempo, ¿no? Ok. Me cago en la puta.
Stanley, is that you? Hold on, sweetie. Sorry to keep you
Cariño.
waiting. I'm just pulling the bread out of the oven.
Candelorda.
Right. Okay, there we go. All right, now, I want you to come in and tell me all about your day.
Gotcha. Oh, come on. Did you actually think you had a loving wife who'd want to commit their life to you? I'm trying to make a point here, Stanley. I'm trying to get you to see something. Come inside. Let me show you what's really going on here. Sorry, but you're in my story now.
Mierda. Buen detalle. Digas que ya, hijo de puta, les dio pereza poner otro camino alternativo.
This is a very sad story about the death of a man named Stanley.
¿Qué?
Stanley is quite a boring fellow. He has a job that demands nothing of him, and every button that he pushes is a reminder of the inconsequential nature of his existence.
Dijo que era la historia de cómo Stanley moría. Que aquí estoy viendo todos los botones, menos el circo. ¿Qué me agacho con el E1?
Look at him there, pushing buttons, doing exactly what he's told
Pero,
to do.
¿cuál se me ordena? Ahora estoy uniendo todos los botones.
Now he's eating lunch. Now he's going home. Now he's coming back to work. One might even feel sorry for him, except that he's chosen this life. But in his mind, he can go on fantastic adventures. From behind his desk, Stanley dreamed of wild expeditions into the unknown, fantastic discoveries of new lands. It was wonderful. And each day that he returned to work was a reminder that none of it would ever happen to him. And so he began to fantasize about his own job.
Okay.
First, he imagined that one day while at work, he stepped up from his desk to realize that all of his co-workers, his boss, everyone in the building had suddenly vanished off the face of the earth. The thought excited him terribly.
Ok, son las... ¿Qué? Como las 9:58? No entiendo.
So he went further. He imagined that he came to two open doors and that he could go through either. At last, choice. It barely even mattered what lay behind each door. The mere thought that his decisions would mean something was almost too wonderful to behold. As he wandered through this fantasy world, he began to fill it with many possible paths and destinations. Down one path lay an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls. And down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions. And down another was a game with a baby. And he called it The Stanley Parable.
O sea que yo soy como
It was
el jugar con el bebé, ok. Yo soy el bebé, ok.
He relived it again, and then again, and again, over and over, wishing beyond hope that it would never end, that he might always feel this free. Surely there's an answer down some new path, mustn't there be? Perhaps if he played just one more time. But there is no answer. How could there possibly be? In reality, all he's doing is pushing the same buttons he always has. Nothing has changed. The longer he spends here, the more invested he gets, the more he forgets which life is the real one.
Pues esa es su vida real, o sea, qué puta.
And I'm trying to tell him this, that in this world he can never be anything but an observer, that as long as he remains here, he's slowly killing himself. But he won't listen to me. He won't stop. Here, watch this. Stanley, the next time the screen asks you to push a button, do not do it. You see? Can he just not hear me?
Obviamente lo hundí.
That he'll understand that every second he remains here, he's electing to kill himself. How can I get him to see what I see? How can I make him look at himself?
Que el marica es como un psicólogo.
I suppose I can't. Not in the way I want him to. But I don't make the rules. I simply play to my intended purpose. The same Stanley. We're not so different, I suppose. I'll try once more to convey all this to him. I'm compelled to. I must. Perhaps, well, maybe this time he'll see. Maybe this time. And I tried again, and Stanley pushed a button. And I tried again, and Stanley pushed a button.
Muere, por favor. ¿Qué? Por la cara. Me cago en la puta.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
O sea que me vas a poner a repetirlo todo.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on
A ver,
his
para
left.
cerrar tengo que ir por la izquierda, o sea, por favor. También es que de puta hay 427 habitaciones aquí, ¿o qué?
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Veo un closet.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Esa no me la sabía.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway. Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long. Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility. The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out? Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
Ok, esa es la mía. Oh, sí.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No, he refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never! It was unthinkable. Wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof, the heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life, for he would dismantle the controls once and for all. Blackness, and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes! He had won! He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door. Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.